But you think, of course, Mark, don't you, that they should only be brought up as Christians? For you, it's a matter of salvation, isn't it, for a child?
It certainly is the fact that the most important decision any of us make is our decision about Jesus Christ and the gospel, whether we will trust in him for the forgiveness of our sins, that we might go to heaven. That's the issue for all mankind. So we put that in the context of educating a child, and we see, first of all, that a Christian home will be a home where they love their children. And this is a point that was made by the doctor opposite. He said that he's aware of emotional abuse. You won't have emotional abuse in a loving household, and that's what Christianity gives you. Non-religious households are less likely to give you that same degree of love. Now, love requires that you give somebody freedom of choice. And freedom of choice means that you don't force something down someone's, but you give them the information, as we've all discussed.
But if you have children, you may have children one day. You're not, I don't know if you're married.
I'm not married.
But if you have children, of course you would be married, Mark.
Yes, I would.
But if you were to have children one day, for you, their Christian education is a matter ultimately, because you love them so much, of their avoiding hell.
No, well, yes, of course it is. But the way you do that is to give them the information to make the choice, but tell them that if they're going to make that choice, it's going to cost them a lifestyle choice, and they must make that decision for themselves. I would certainly not want to make it for them.
But I think all religions, that's what they aim for. They aim for their adherents to actually make a choice. The idea is you are accountable for your actions. And I think religion does teach criticality, does teach critical thinking. As a Muslim who grew up in a Catholic convent, we were encouraged to think critically, both in both ways. And it's about making that choice. So religion does give you the option to start thinking and making choices.
You were going to come back on Mark just a second ago. We're going to go on to faith schools in just a second.
I think that defence of Christian upbringing in the home sort of exposes one of the deep problems with raising children to see religion and morality as too closely linked together. If you raise a child and say, you know, here is the religion and morality is part of this and it's very dependent on morality, and later in life that child rejects, and statistically they're extremely likely to do, rejects the religious belief, I think there's a danger that they reject the morality as well, and they're left without the resources to live a moral and meaningful that's why when people say, what's your problem with religious schools, because lots of people who leave them aren't religious, that's why that's not a good response to objection to religious schools, because the fracture from leaving beliefs behind can be as damaging as growing up and not questioning them.
Because all that children are exposed to in a whole range of ways, which by television, school, the lot, is that there are a range of ways of living your life. Nobody can bring their child up as an island, except the ones that describe that are the extreme cases where there's a real isolationist view, homeschoolers who don't let their children out into the real world, if you like. Children are exposed to that all the time, and part of a parent's job, as has already been said, is to help them to negotiate those choices. And when they're very little, you're not going to give them that much choice, because actually they're not able to make the choices. But as we've all said, and you're quite right, we all sign up to the fact that it's about understanding where the different viewpoints come from, what you want to show of your own commitments, and you're absolutely right, you want to pass on to your child the things that matter to you.
Idris is desperate to come in. Yeah. Am I right in saying that you took your children out at one stage of the state system?
Yes, I mean, they didn't go into it.
Right. When you were worried about their being indoctrinated?
Yes, I just felt I could do a better job with educating them, because I'd seen the results of education, you know, both from my own education, but, you know, I had been interested in education as a social...
What were you worried about that they might be inculcated into them?
One thing which I was worried about, which I think is something which has not really been mentioned, which is about giving children a language of the inward, of opening neural pathways that if you don't open them at the time when they're sensitive to those things, they don't have that inner language to make spiritual judgments. And I would say that I, myself, in my own life, are an example of that. I came from parents who never expressed any spiritual, religious, they never talked about God, but in their wisdom, they sent me to a Bible class, you know, a Sunday school at the age of 5, and then they sent me off at the age of 8 to a kind of a prep school that had, you know, very definite Christian kind of ethos, and we used to sing hymns. And I don't think that I would have had that language of exploring my own inward, which actually, you know, ended up with me becoming a Muslim if I had just been left in the hands of my parents, because they didn't have any language
So that
for that. Those
your
things
pathways were blocked.
my pathways would have been blocked if I hadn't been for the intervention
Yeah.
of the Christian education.
Anthony.
Yeah, you're talking about the wonderful human love and support and guidance of parents. And I'm afraid I do object quite strongly to hear a statement that can only come through any one particular belief system. I think it can come through a variety of different ways, including religion. As I say, I think people sometimes have to push quite hard to find it within certain strictures of religion. Some religions are more broad-based than others. I think that's wonderful that your parents loved you and showed you love and support. Open up the pathways. What I worry about is
I think they
some
did,
pathways
I
are
think they did it
closed.
inadvertently. I don't think they had any. They just did it because everybody else sent their children off to Sunday school.
It's an unintended
in that,
consequence.
So they did it kind of.
I want to move on to faith schools in a second, but finish what you were saying, Anthony.
I'm not sure I had anything more to say on
If
that
you
one.
finished,
I think I have.
well, I
yes.
think
But
if
that
he'd finished
is-
what he
that
was saying, he deserves a
language-
round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. Faith schools. Faith schools. Rabbi Jonathan Romain. This may come as a surprise to some people. Why are you so dead set, absolutely against faith schools?
Well, as you just heard, I am very much in favour of faith, but I'm actually concerned about faith schools because of their effect. Now, I know that people who run them may have the very best intentions, but the actual result is you're dividing the children. And we wouldn't dream of doing that by colour, school for black children, school for white children. Why are we doing it by faith? And of course... And the result is we have little sort of educational ghettos of Muslims here, my lot, the Jews there, Catholics, Sikhs, Hindus, and it's actually not healthy. It's not healthy for the children because it limits their horizons. And even if the best of those schools teach about other children and other faiths, it's not the same as interacting, sitting next to them. And it's also not good for the rest of their families because it means the parents don't meet outside the school gate, they don't meet at sort of sports days, open days, and therefore you're cutting huge swathes through society. And I say all this for religious reasons because I actually take seriously the Bible and where it says love your neighbour as yourself. And the only way you can actually love your neighbour is actually if you meet your neighbour and know your neighbour and interact.
David Conway? I think we'll bring David in on this, yeah?
Well, I beg to differ, and I differ for the following reason. The reason you asked the question, why should anyone bring their children up in a faith school? The answer to that is because of the benefits and value of a religious education. You yourself have said that you support faith. A corollary of that, I take it, would be that you should support religious education. Now,
Yes,
the
but not at school.
Excuse me, sorry.
After school,
Can I be...
weekends. Why divide the children?
Well,
9
if you
to 3?
allow me to get a word in, I will tell you why. Because of the differences that there are between faiths and the impossibility of bringing children up in any one faith simultaneously in a class, in a school, at the same time as you are seeking to inculcate and nurture every other faith that there is in this country.
I disagree with
Well,
that.
excuse me.
We do it.
No,
So they're irreconcilable.
Yes, absolutely. It's a tower of what you will get is a Tower of Babel.
So
and not only that,
there are walls between...
Wait a minute. If we can go back.
But is that not an argument that religion should be nothing to do with schools?
No,
then?
absolutely not. If you think, sorry, can I just go? Can we start? Sorry, can we just go back a few steps?
It's fine, David.
Yeah. Is religion a good thing for children? Right. It's a good thing for children. Why is it a good thing for children? It's a good thing for children because it's a good thing for adults. Why is it a good thing for adults? Because innumerable studies have shown from America, Europe and Britain that people lead healthier, happier lives and less... I'm sorry. No, with respect, these are the latest findings from positive psychology. Richard Layard in his book Happiness...
Could I quote the Christian Medical Fellowship?
No, you can't, because I'm speaking now. And that's point number one.
Yeah.
Secondly, it has also been found that children who have a religious faith, have some religious faith, it is far better for them educationally. Not only do they tend to achieve much better academic results in consequence, and irrespective of whichever type
Why is
of
that?
faith...
Because of their religious
It's
faith?
be-
Why? Or because of their home life? Or
No,
what?
well, I'll tell you what. That's
Go
what
on.
I'll answer
Right.
that question. The reason why, one is it insulates them from a lot of risky behaviours that otherwise children... This is a well-known... Look, I'm sorry, you keep saying no. Why don't some of you... Why don't some of you read some of the social scientific literature?
There is a huge amount of social scientific literature on this, and what it shows by and large is that people who have strong beliefs of any sort have, happier lives and feel more secure in themselves. Unsurprising. That doesn't mean that we should start encouraging really, really right-wing racist political beliefs, because the people who have them are really happy. And in the same way, not to compare like with like, well, they are. If you look at the American studies, for example, you keep using the category of religion as if that's what's being talked about, but actually, strong beliefs of any sort, strong community belonging of any sort, whether non-religious or religious, is shown to have
you
the
feel
same
constantly
beneficial
vindicated.
effect. Yeah, you're with people who, agree with you, and it's very a good feeling of solidarity.
Yeah.
But, another good part of life is to be challenged and to think outside your normal parameters, and that is the best part. Absolutely, is what this programme is about. Imagine how boring it would be if everyone here in this audience all agreed and was of the same mind.
But it's up to the community.
Rania.
Then if it wants to create a school, to create a school. And actually in this country, I would actually support faith schools, which are open to everybody in the community to apply and come to them. Because what they actually give, they will follow the national curriculum, they'll be inspected by Ofsted. I've been a governor for a faith school for many years. We've gone through all this. But they also develop what Idris was talking about, which is those spiritual pathways, those questions. They ask the metaphysical questions that all kids can take part in. So they do not exclude, they do not have to be exclusive. As I said, as Jay said, there are many examples of faith schools in Britain currently where kids from all background, all faith and no faiths go to, and they actually thrive there.
I'm sorry, but,
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry, but how competent are children to ask questions about metaphysics is baffling to me when many of them are not in the ability to ask such complex questions.
Well, questions about why I'm here, what made the
Well, they
world.
don't
These are the
need to
questions.
answer
If you
them.
talk to
They don't
Stephen, he
need
will
to
tell
answer
you
them.
at what
But
level.
Absolutely right. Children will always ask questions that are all just out of their
Well, let's hear
reach
his
to know
story.
the
He's got a
answers,
fascinating
I
story, because you
think.
were brought up in a Muslim school in Pakistan.
Yes.
And then...
Well, I wouldn't say a Muslim school, but Islamic education was
Okay,
compulsory.
then you came to this country, went to a science class, and gradually your eyes were opened to the true wonders of science, which you'd
Yes.
not been taught.
Well, I do realize that, of course, if you want to have a faith school, then faith itself or religion itself makes claims about ethics and various other things. And if you do in fact allow that, then there will be disagreements, because it's already making such claims. Education as a secular education itself, they are quite open to every other view. Whereas if you allow just a faith school of just one religion, they will teach the worldview of that religion. But of course, whilst everyone says that faith teaches people to be curious, children to be curious, well, they already have a natural curiosity, and I do feel that we should pursue curiosity for curiosity's sake, rather than use another thing that...
Yeah, and the problem is, of course, there was the problem, wasn't there, of the King Fahd school in Acton. It was a private school. It was funded by Saudi money, and they were teaching creationism over the true wonders of science. They were teaching anti-Semitism. They were teaching that Jews should be called pigs, and they were teaching that women should be in their
But that's
place.
not to do with the religion. That's to do with actually, that's completely erroneous, because the Quran does not teach creationism.
Well, you're denying
Can I finish? If you read the Quran actually talks about evolution. The Quran talks about, they are not teaching, they were actually making mistakes. And that's nothing to do with faith. It could do with
that was
with
nothing
a
to do
particular
with-
ideology.
So that was
But
nothing
can I
to do
just say that
with
actually
religion?
It's nothing to do with religion. It was to do with completely erroneous idea about religion.
Well, I would say...
Stephen, you would say it in a minute, if you don't mind.
Yeah, a minor point on Teflon coating religion, as it were. I mean, you need to be very careful about saying, oh, this is the real religion, and that's not really religion at all. I mean, atheists are guilty of the same thing. Christopher Hitchens once suggested that Stalin and Mao weren't really atheists. They were religious. And why did he say that? Because he wanted to Teflon coat the atheism. It's a dubious intellectual strategy to say these people aren't really religious.
No, but if they made a mistake, that's a mistake, and they should be actually sanctioned for that mistake. Sanctioned, is that the right word? Whatever the
That'll
word is.
do.
Can I say something about the way in which...
Sorry, you're going to come back. In 1 second, you're going to come back.
Well, I forgot what I was about.
We were on the King Fahd school in Acton, and where it can go so
I
badly
remember now
wrong.
what I was going to talk about, and was... Hold on, let me make a point. I haven't spoken for quite a while. The point is that while she says that Quran doesn't say that, Quran doesn't say this, the point is that there are quite a lot of people who have in fact left Islam, and they do cite verses from the Quran. They cite certain hadiths and say that there's something wrong with them, and they cite that there's a problem with an ethical and moral code that is already here and very much helpful to people. Although most of us say that, of course, again, like the same point with curiosity, we say, well, religion teaches you about ethics as well. So why don't we pursue ethics for just ethics' sake, rather than use religion to pursue ethics?